All right, guys. So I'm here with Elaine. I've been trying to avoid Elaine all day, so we didn't jump all over this conversation beforehand. But every time we get together, we start talking about the industry as a whole, and we always say how this would be a great podcast to get going and get out to you guys, because with MovementLink, it's really just the soul of MovementLink and what we're trying to do. So first, let's just introduce you to me and Elaine. So Elaine, what are your credentials? Who are you?
So I'm Elaine. My last name is Ty. I'm a physical therapist and I'm a fellowship trained manual physical therapist. So what that means is that I have my doctor of physical therapy and then I have an additional 3 to 5 years of training on top of that, which really focuses on correcting movement impairments. So that's kind of why I've decided to link up with Kyle and join this MovementLink because it's all about movement and fixing movement impairments.
Awesome. And then, what do you back squat?
Back squat currently 275.
How much do you weigh? That's a question you don't ask any girl, but Elaine's cool with it. What do you weigh?
Right around 120, sometimes right below 120.
So more than a double weight back squat. What's your Fran time?
Currently 217.
Whew. So we've got physical therapists, highly trained, highly qualified, and an elite athlete in her own right. Why do you work out?
It's first of all is to maintain fitness, but also I was a competitive gymnast for 15 years of my life, and I needed something to kind of fill that void after I retired from gymnastics. So I found CrossFit, and it's just to maintain fitness, but also to promote fitness, and it helps me in my job is I do these movements. So when I tell my patients to kind of move and fix their movement, it helps them know that I myself do these corrective exercises and fix my movement impairments that I have myself.
Awesome. So you probably already know by now, but I'm Kyle Ligon. I'm the owner of CrossFit City Limits. We opened in 2012, so we have a lot of the practical experience here in the gym, and Elaine's got a lot of the clinical experience. How did you find our gym? How did we get linked up, and why are you still here?
Good question. Actually, the gym approached our clinic, so I work at Austin Manual Therapy Associates. They approached us, I would probably say around 2013 or 2014, and I just happened to be a intern at this clinic, and we used to do movement screens on these Saturdays, and I just walked into the gym, and upon first walking in, I was just like, oh my gosh, what are you guys doing and how can I join? So I got to watching them and talking to the coaches and kind of the philosophy of why people do CrossFit, and I was like, this is it. This is why I want to join CrossFit, and I want to join this gym specifically because they focus so much on technique and injury prevention and community and having fun, and that's exactly what the foundations of CrossFit are about. Constantly varied movement, but doing it safely and effectively. And so I chose this gym specifically because of that, and that's the main focus of what this gym is about.
Awesome. And so I think the cool thing about MovementLink is what we're trying to do is get healthy and fit into our 90s, but we're also saying that we don't have to give up elite performance to do things the right way and to feel good and be fit and active. So something that I think is really cool about you is not only do you have that physical therapy background,
Yes.
and you've been a big part in influencing how we coach and how we've actually developed our thinking, which is what MovementLink is.
Correct.
But also you've proved that you can be at a very, very elite level with the right priorities in the workout. And you don't have to just slam your head against the door, come in. It's not just about work. It's about smart work.
Yes, train smarter, not harder.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Cool. So you've got a lot of experience. We see CrossFitters on a daily basis. You're a physical therapist. How many people do you get your hands on any given weekday?
On a weekday, I could see anywhere between 13 and 15 patients.
All right.
On
So
average.
what backgrounds are these people coming to you in? Like, what sports are they playing? What exercise are they doing, if any?
I have a very wide variety of people who come through my door. So I have anyone as elite as, say, a collegiate bound gymnast who is just coming in for possible injury and rehab for an injury. And then I have people who are like well into their 90s who are just coming in for just functional training, functional capacity. They want to be able to stand and walk, bend over without pain. So I have a very wide spectrum of patients that walk through my door. And the cool thing about it is it's all about foundations. The foundations of how I treat that elite athlete is really no different than how I would treat, say, my 98-year-old who comes in with a walker. There's really no change. It's just the intensity, I think, of the what I give them. But the foundations of what we're actually fixing comes down to literally the foundations.
So what are those?
Usually core strength and posture. Posture is huge. We are always taught in the physical therapy world that
as soon as you say posture, I start standing up better over here.
Breakdown in movement occurs when you initiate it, meaning that if you start from poor posture, poor positioning, you're going to already have that potential for breakdown before you even start moving. So my elite gymnasts, they're most likely going to be in that hyperlordotic position. Pelvis is rotated forward. Their core is doing nothing to help them get through their movements. And it might be the exact same as my 98-year-old who is walking in a walker, pitched forward, doing this, same thing.
So we see the same dysfunction.
Same dysfunction, no matter what age, no matter what spectrum, no matter what level of athletic ability or no athletic ability, sedentary lifestyle versus very, very, very elite level athlete. So the foundations of kind of the posture of where we start, that has to be addressed beyond the entire spectrum.
Okay, so that's easy.
Yes.
Posture. So
How
come nobody knows about this?
Because no one ever works at it.
Yeah. And
no
what is posture? What does that even mean?
So posture to me is how you're holding your body in space when you're at rest.
Yeah.
So anything static, whether it be standing statically or sitting statically or even lying down statically. So not moving, where is your body in space and where is your spine in space in regards to that? So when I explain posture to people, I always tell them it's about finding your center of gravity, your center of balance, and actually putting it in your center. So most people don't quite know where that is because they've hung out in these postures
I'm centered, man.
Years. Or what I see is, especially in the tech industry and anyone who's on computers, is this, what I call is text neck. And when you do this, your center of gravity is actually pitched about 2 inches forward. And so in order to balance that out, your lower half has to do something.
Yeah.
So it's all about getting your center actually in the center. So everything neutral.
Nice. So in the MovementLink stuff, posture is everything. It's the center of everything. Everyone's going to get completely sick of hearing us talk about posture.
Straight up and down.
Exactly, because it's not fun to talk about.
No.
The bells and whistles on how to kip, how to snatch, that's the fun. How to do a roundhouse kick, that's the fun stuff.
That's the fun stuff, but if the posture isn't 100% there, those movements are going to be so much harder to achieve.
Yeah.
And same thing, potential for kind of weird movements happening, excessive movements in other planes of movement or of motion instead of from this straight up and down plane.
So we see the overuse injuries, but we also see the decreased performance.
Yes.
So it's two things. We don't have to really juggle these things. It's for two really good reasons. The only reasons that matter to us are the reasons we need to focus on this.
Yes. So posture is
Posture's
huge.
everything.
It's step one.
Okay.
You need to have a solid foundation in order to build upon that. So take like a house, for example,
Yeah.
right? Like if your foundation is really, really poor, doesn't matter how strong the beams and the struts and the scaffolding is on top of that foundation will eventually crumble, and everything else is going to fall first. So build a solid foundations, build upon that nice neutral posture, and then the fun stuff.
Then the fun stuff. Yeah,
happens.
and we can kind of learn these together, but you gotta have that solid, and it takes
foundation.
constant work,
Yes.
constant work.
Yes. And it's not going to be perfect at first. It takes time, and it takes effort and time.
And we're not asking you to
No.
wait to do things and learn things until you're perfect. You're not ever going to be perfect.
No, strive. I always tell my patients this is to strive for progress and not perfection. Because if you're just at least working at it, you're doing better than the average Joe over there who's not doing anything working towards this.
So we're not asking you to not squat, not do pull-ups,
No,
not
we
do
actually
Fran
want you to.
until you're perfect posture, because you do nothing. You work on posture for the rest of your life, and you never work out.
Yeah, it's like it'll be fine. And same thing, we were taught in the physical therapy world, it's not the movements per se that are dangerous, it's how they're being performed.
Yeah.
So same thing, if you're just not performing them from a potentially straight up and down position, you're going to break down.
Yeah.
Just over time.
Well, and I like this too because it's not just makes it more dangerous.
No.
There's no magic in the movement.
Nope.
So good examples are leg raises, dead bugs, hollow holds.
Yep.
If we're not bracing our core the right way, we're using the wrong muscles in these positions. And so even though we're doing core exercises that are great for our core, if we've got the motor pattern off with just the day one fundamentals, there's no point.
You're defeating the purpose of said exercise.
Yeah.
And that's what I see all the time.
What's our favorite one?
Oh my gosh! So people will tell them about, okay, well you got to strengthen your rotator cuff, and you see everyone set up their bands, do their weights or whatever.
And what's the rotator cuff for everybody?
So the rotator cuff is a set of 4 muscles that actually have 2 functions. One is to actually rotate the shoulder, right? Because it's a ball and socket joint. It surrounds the ball and it rotates the ball in the socket. But the second function is to actually set the ball into the socket. So there's 2 functions of it. And if you're rotating your shoulder from this kind of forward positioned place, it does nothing. It feeds back into the dysfunction that you're trying to correct. So it comes down to your foundations and your posture. If you're here and you work on the rotation, this is actually the purpose of what your rotator cuff should do, and not.
So I think that's a big, huge distinction here with the MovementLink stuff. What we're talking about is you have to have intent, and you have to know why you're doing thrusters.
Yes, purpose.
Or thrusters aren't functional. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
You have to know why we're doing this, because if we're just doing this, if we're just doing dead bugs and hollow, it doesn't matter because we don't have the context into how to do it right, or the context of how doing this in one way would transfer to everything else.
Yes, it needs to be functional and translatable throughout all movements, and like it's. I hate saying this, but it really doesn't matter how much weight that you're throwing over your head. It's really not that impressive. The impressive part is if you can do the weight but with perfect technique. That is way more impressive than how much weight you can throw over your head.
And that actually transfers into real life things.
Yeah, throughout everything. And so same thing. I see this all the time in the clinic when they're with me and I'm kind of watching them. I can cue them. They look great. They're doing their exercises. They look great. And then they go over and pick up their purse and they fall back into these dysfunctions. And so, yes, the posture is good during exercise, but throughout daily life is actually, I think, more important than it is even just during exercise.
That's something we hammer our members over and over again. They go and pick up their kettlebell.
Like, what are you doing?
And then they have the best kettlebell swings I've ever seen in my life. And then they're done with kettlebell swings.
And they
go back to being a monster.
Yeah, and that is actually where breakdown in tissues happen.
Exactly.
It's very rarely ever during exercise because we're so focused on, okay, shoulders up and back, chin down, core engaged, butt engaged, rotate everything in. But then, like, after we're through with our workout, what happens?
Yeah. That's why we're not getting hurt in the gym. You're getting hurt moving your pillow to the other side of the bed, and then you're like, my back.
Yes, or they're like, well, I woke up like this.
Yeah.
What led up to that, right? It's not like you just fell asleep and it's like, oh, I slipped a disc. Like, no, all your movements throughout your day, it's those 16 hours of your day where you're not exercising or you're not sleeping is where the breakdown happens.
So your exercise as a gym is where you hold yourself to the highest standard possible. That way, what you're doing in here actually has a chance of translating into the real world when you're not thinking about it.
Yes.
Or when you're playing your sport, you don't want to sit there and be like, how do I get up off the ground? It's like, we know we've done burpees 1,000, hundreds of thousands of times. It's just second nature to fire up the core the right way, to move the best way possible, and just be efficient.
Yes. But it needs to translate into daily life.
Yes.
So, like, I see just when you go to the grocery store, people on the bottom shelf, you're like, well, you don't pick up, your deadlift 225 pounds like that.
Or the coach coaching the squat, squatting down on their toes in the worst squat position you've ever seen in your life. They don't get it. They don't understand a squat is a squat, and it's the way to optimally move our body.
Yes, for everything.
And we don't need to be robots.
No.
But we need to be able to put ourselves in good positions, and we want to just be in the habit of doing that.
Yeah, and all the time. And that's, I think, is the hardest part for people to grasp, is why are we doing these exercises and why is it so important?
Because it's cool. CrossFit's cool, man. That's why we're doing it. Gotta get those Instagram posts going.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah. Like, I like the likes. Or
gotta be cool.
Gotta be cool. But that needs to translate into daily life. That is actually going to help build your foundations, but also make sure that you can do these activities later in life. Say you're 70, 80, 90 years old, you should still be able to.
You don't want to be 70 years old and moving like a ex-professional football player because when you were 30 years old, you thought it was cool to throw around weight in shitty positions in a CrossFit gym.
Yeah. Like, and that's what we're seeing now, like, especially the baby boomers, and I'm seeing this huge trend in the clinic, is these people back in their day were probably great athletes, but they never really honed in on the technique, and they're paying for it now in their 60s and 70s and 80s, and they're getting joint replacements, and they're having all these kind of unnecessary surgeries because they didn't quite work on the foundations from a younger age. And that's not saying that, like, if you're in your 60s, 70s, or 80s that you can't work at it. You can. You just have to ingrain those movement patterns and just work at moving better. And that's exactly kind of what we're trying to promote with MovementLink, is just continue moving, but move better.
Gotta move better.
Yeah, move better. And we're ingrained with these movements from birth. Like, watch an infant move. They move perfectly.
Oh, yeah.
What happens?
And it usually happens 4 to 5 years old.
Exactly.
Well, what you start seeing is they bring in, and we see people bring their kids in the gym all the time, bring in these babies, and now they got these super cool Chuck T Converse on their feet. And now they have these squishy baby feet that are trying to develop, and they're stuck in these casts of shoes. And then they're in strollers. But what we see is the babies squat and deadlift perfectly. 3 and 4 year olds, well, they start off running funky, but 4-year-olds run perfectly.
Run well.
5-year-olds don't know how to run. So they learn it and immediately unlearn it. So we all knew this stuff at one point.
It's just we need to revert back to that. And in order to do that, we need to move, but move better. Just constantly move. And what we're seeing is you always hear that term, sitting is the new smoking, because it's just as bad for your health.
So why is sitting bad?
It just pitches our bodies in a position where nothing really works. So when you sit for long periods of time, you can... Actually,
so let's do this, because let's talk about what posture is and how to get there, and then we can talk about why it's almost impossible to get there sitting. So how we cue posture all the time is we draw the lower abs in, drawing your belly button into your spine, flex and hold a Kegel, squeeze your butt cheeks, nice and evenly balanced on our feet, toes touching, ball of your feet touching, heel touching. We're going to create torque through the hip by rotating all of that into the ground. Rib cage down, and we're going to extend up tall. And then we're going to create that torque in our shoulder also. So you notice that we're standing here, but we're not standing here like crazy people. So how hard do we need to flex? We need to flex as hard as we need to flex to hold the position. Okay, so we're on at 20%, and you might notice in the podcast us slip out and then figure it out and come back to it. So no one's perfect, but we're trying to be on doing all of this stuff 20% all day until you go to bed at night.
Yes.
And then as you move faster, as you move heavier, as you move harder, we flex harder and harder and harder.
Harder, yeah.
So then when we sit down,
none of this can happen.
Yeah.
So when you're sitting, your tailbone potentially either goes too far behind you, or you kind of overextend here.
Wait, but this is bad. So I just jam it this way, and now I'm good, right?
It's an overcorrection.
Okay.
And so some people do this, but the majority of people go the opposite, where they just kind of slump. And when you do that, you cannot fire your core. It just shuts off.
Yeah.
You can't fire your glutes, your shoulders shut off. You're kind of just hanging out on your joints. You're locking your joints out. You're really not working on stabilizing at all. So in order to sit correctly, you would have to pitch yourself really far forward on the chair and actually get into these positions. And that is very tiring.
Yeah, you can't. Here, I'm squeezing my butt cheeks.
Yeah.
Can't do that on the chair.
No, because when your knees are bent, it's same thing. It just kind of pitches the hip in the pelvis in a weird way, where it kind of elongates and it shuts off the glutes. So you can't quite work on getting your center in its center in a sitting position without fatiguing out. So like if you try to do that in a sitting position versus the 20%.
Yeah, because you try it, and what does it last for 30 seconds? They're probably doing it right now, sitting down watching this, and they're like,
yeah, and then like
2 minutes from now,
like
right
here.
back. Yeah.
And same our chairs, our ergonomic chairs, they're not the best.
But it's got that lumbar support. Just like your shoes have that nice arch support.
It's great. It's really not great.
So what does that lumbar support do? It shoves us into that overextended position.
And then that rib cage just kind of gets here. And then same thing. You just end up using the lumbar support or using your spine.
Yeah, you're just sitting on bones back there.
You're sitting on bones. You're not really using the stabilizer muscles.
So degenerative discs. Herniated discs. It's like, because you're sitting on bone and just rubbing bone on bone.
All day long.
Yeah.
And so we're seeing the trend though.
Yeah.
And I'm
because when we opened, everyone came in like this.
Yeah, it's like
now
we're seeing it.
Everyone's coming in here.
Yeah.
Everyone's still getting hurt outside the gym, and they're coming in with back issues. We're fixing the back issues with neutral.
Just finding neutral and staying neutral, and that's so hard to do.
Yeah.
And a lot of times
I think that's key is people understanding that it's hard.
It's hard.
And especially when it's hard. I've been trying to do it. I got woken up about 3 years ago.
For years.
And I saw her with a lot of back issues. But it's been probably 3.5 years since we've had to talk about back issues. And it was night and day, but for 3.5 years I've been working on it, and it's still constant.
Yes.
I'm still battling in workouts. It's just like I'm slowing down a tick so I can get into good positions. But I saw you probably once a year for 4 years in a row.
Yeah.
Haven't had to talk to you about my back for 3.5 years.
Yeah, because he's worked at it. Same thing. It's something to work at. It's not going to be perfect. I mean, it's taken decades to kind of develop this posture.
Yeah. And I'm good at that one.
Yeah, you're good at
I got that one down.
It's taken decades though to kind of like allow gravity to take over. So it will take time to just kind of reverse that movement. And so it's okay if you fall out of it, but frequently throughout your day you have to get into these postures. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes. The more your body's like, ooh, I like being here. I'm not in pain when I'm here. And then that is where the retraining happens. And then it's not glamorous.
And I'll catch myself making eggs or doing whatever I'm doing. It's like, oh, my lower back. And then instantly it's like, Squeeze your butt cheeks, get tight, go through the checklist,
squeeze.
and it's like instant
Okay, here we
relief.
go. Yeah.
You can feel the extension in the lower back, and it's just like
Decompression.
instant relief, and then you're like, dummy,
Yeah.
should have been doing this all along.
Exactly.
At least we have a strategy now where if you get caught in a situation, we know how to fix it now.
You know what to do. You're going to have these kind of what I like to call self-management techniques on how to correct your own posture and go through this little checklist. Okay, is my core tight? Are my butt muscles engaged? Are my heels rotated and screwed into the ground? Where are my shoulders in space? Is my rib cage locked down but I'm lifting through here? Where's my body in space?
Yeah.
Go through those checklists. And at first, it's like it takes a little bit of time to kind of develop that checklist, but once you get through it, like you said, it's like, oh, okay.
And the good news, this is how we stand.
It's how we just move.
It's how we get under a bar for a back squat.
That's exactly
It's how we set up for a deadlift. It's how we do a clean and a jerk and a snatch.
Yeah.
It's how we run.
Jump, anything that we do has to come from this position.
So it takes a lot of time to develop.
Yes.
But
it translates
it's the same, and it's the same thing. So we're developing one thing that we can use for everything. And then the big thing, and this is what we talk about a lot, is how we brace as a human being is different than how we brace as a competitive powerlifter who's wearing a weight belt. So something that happens is the majority of articles online are written by powerlifters and Olympic weightlifters because those sports have been around forever. And in those sports we wear knee sleeves, we wear weight belts, we wear Olympic weightlifting shoes or powerlifting shoes. Sometimes they go flat, but there's a bunch of gear. So these articles and these videos are made by geared powerlifters, generally for everybody, but it's not clear that the context is geared powerlifting and not how do we need to move in the gym for tennis or for playing with our kids or for these types of reasons. Or how do we move in the gym to compete in these sports, which you can do without weight belts.
Correct. And be able to perform everything safely.
Exactly.
And efficiently. There's a lot of these, like, especially on Instagram, like I see this all the time, and they're giving suggestions on, how if you have got knee pain when you squat, do this. And I'm like, well, hold up.
Yeah.
That is so advanced for the general public. They do
That's
not
great.
Understand what that even means.
One of my favorite quotes, because that's so perfect. One of my favorite quotes, it was from another gymnast we had. He was a gymnastics coach, and he was like, if you want to learn how to do gymnastics the right way, don't look at the elite gymnasts. He goes, look at the kids.
Yes.
The kids haven't been beat up. They're not working around a wrist issue. They're not working around an ankle that doesn't move. What are your gymnastics injuries? What are we working around here?
Oh man, I've ruptured my Achilles. I have a spondylolisthesis in my low back. I've had shoulder issues, neck issues. So
these extreme sports and being at elite levels they beat us up.
Yes.
So we don't want to learn from the people who are beat up.
No.
One of my favorite things I've seen is Mark Bell. He's a super elite level power lifter. He used to coach in the bench press, jam your neck up. And it's because he's super tight in the shoulder. And what he learned for himself is that his workaround was to jam his neck up to get around the position. He started working with a physical therapist. Now he's in better positions. He doesn't teach that anymore. Because it was just his context. He's elite. So amazing. You got so much to learn from him.
Yes.
But at his elite level, he was doing specific things for his body.
Yes.
And it was getting misinterpreted for what everybody should be doing.
Yes.
And we want to start more general and then figure out these things to figure out how best to do it.
I agree. So keep it simple.
Keep it simple.
Keep it simple. And it doesn't have to be, all these things and all these cues. That's so much. And same thing that might gear more towards those specific elite level athletes, and it's so sport specific.
And sport specific, specific elite athletes with specific issues and workarounds. Injuries.
So I would advise people not to kind of
just blindly follow. Yeah, because there's a ton to learn from them. Yes, so much to learn.
So much.
But you got to keep it in context.
Yeah, so keep it in context, and especially like what you want to do. Like, do you just want to, run better, or
Yeah.
do you just want to work on your posture? Do you just want to work on like back squat? And it all falls back to the basics of how are you even just standing?
Yeah.
How are you sitting? How are you just moving?
Uh-huh.
And that is kind of what we're trying to hone in on is the foundations. And it's not glamorous. Like,
No.
it's kind of boring and nitty gritty, but it needs to happen.
Well, I got frustrated just 2 days ago. I was watching a video. I'm all over just absorbing as much as I can. Watching a video of a physical therapist CrossFitter demoing how to do a kettlebell armbar. And in it, the athlete's got her shoulder rotated the wrong way, and he's sitting there explaining stability and the position, and he's overlooking the most fundamental day one stuff of bracing your core, creating that good shoulder position, and he's got his athlete doing the move, and it's just completely incorrectly. And not only will that person and everyone in this guy's gym, but everyone watching, I think the video had 150,000 views.
Exactly.
And now everyone watching the video is just like,
cool.
Oh, I do the arm bar because it's for
it.
stability. And it's like,
You're doing
it's
it
only
wrong.
for stability if you're doing it right.
Yeah, I was like, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
And so you see that too, is that you're going to see these videos of these people who have all these credentials and like, oh yeah, they're famous for, you know, being this physical therapist, worked with these super elite athletes, but they're missing the point.
Yeah.
Like, they're missing the point of like, okay, yeah, let's lift heavier weights. I'm like, yeah, no.
But for what?
But for what and why?
And it's, we hear the story all the time. The best lifter in the gym on a football team is usually one of the worst football players.
Correct.
It's like the guy who's got the biggest squat and the biggest deadlift because he's got the biggest squat because we got this giant sumo stance because his hips don't move. We've got so he's doing things in a way to lift more instead of doing things in a way that will transfer to playing football.
Yes. Yeah. It's not. Yeah. It needs to be transferable.
Exactly.
And
so it's not about the numbers.
No.
It's about the numbers in the positions that will transfer.
Exactly.
So can I lift more with a weight belt? Probably. I don't know, maybe. At this point, 2 years ago for sure, at this point I think I've built up. But the point is, the motor pattern would be completely different. I would flex differently. I might be able to get a number in the gym higher, but what's the point?
It's like, know your why of like
exactly.
why you're doing this. But the goal is to eventually be able to hit some solid numbers, but with solid technique and solid form.
Yeah.
Protect your joints, protect your muscles, actually use your muscles for their intended purpose.
And have motor patterns, posture, squat, push-up, jump, that transfer to everything. So instead of having one weight belt motor pattern when I'm back squatting, and then now I'm doing thrusters without a weight belt, now it's a different motor pattern.
Yeah.
And so when I'm back squatting, am I actually getting better at thrusters? And it's like, kinda, but not really.
Yeah.
But if I squat without the weight belt, now it's the same motor pattern as the thruster, and then now we get a lot of carryover.
Yes, you need that translation, and you need that carryover, and that is so much more impressive than, you know, back squatting 385 with terrible technique and using a weight belt and sleeves and wrist guards and all these things. Way more functional and important to maybe back off the weight a little bit and focus on actually using your core stabilizers instead of having to rely on equipment.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's what the ollie shoes make you squat lower because it raises your heel up and gives you super ankles.
Yeah.
The arch support in your shoe just makes you not have to use your foot like a foot.
Yeah.
That's why when the Vibram 5-finger shoes came out, all the runners started getting mad and suing Vibram because they were all getting hurt.
Yes.
It's because they had their feet in casts.
Yes, and they don't have the
foot strength
to help support their foot, which is actually why they made those shoes in the first place, is to train that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they just throw them on and then they go run for 12 miles and they get hurt. It's like, well, you've never used your foot like a foot.
Ever.
So what made you think you could run 12 miles on a foot that's never been used as a foot?
Yes.
And then for us, it's like, going to the beach, playing sand volleyball,
Same
if we're
thing.
lifting in weightlifting shoes all the time,
What happens?
yeah, in this limited range of motion, what happens when we take our shoes off and go run around?
Exactly.
It's like we're in trouble.
It's not functional.
Yeah.
And we're not saying that, like, if you're competing, by all means, like,
Yeah, that's
you
a good
can
point.
use those because you're doing it for that specific
Yeah,
purpose.
but know the reason.
Know the reason why
Exactly.
you're using the equipment.
Because is a back squat with a weight belt and weightlifting shoes and knee sleeves functional? The answer is it depends what you're doing.
Correct.
If you're competing
why.
and you're going to
Yeah.
wear that stuff when you're competing, then yes, it's functional.
Yes.
But we want to be doing everything within the context of what we actually care about.
Yeah, what's
and
the purpose?
99% of CrossFitters out there,
Aren't doing that.
they might compete in a local thing and they might think it's cool to compete in a local thing, but they're not competitors.
No.
They're doing CrossFit for fun. They want to get really good at it, but they want to go to happy hour.
Yes.
And they want to go play volleyball
Yeah.
and they want to hang out and they don't want to be injured all the time.
Yes. I agree.
It's like you watch the elite level competitors and they walk in like old people and then they warm up for 45 minutes and then they start moving and then immediately afterwards it's like, ooh, awesome
Yeah.
sesh, I can
Like-
barely move. It's like it's hard. Like I used to train super hard and every morning when I got up out of bed was just like my ankles and my feet.
Are
It's
so
like
stiff,
I can
everything
barely.
hurts.
I have to warm up to get out of bed and to walk. It
yeah,
was.
it's not functional.
What's the point? And I didn't
Yeah.
compete. All I cared about, but I cared about CrossFit so much. But I was dealing with back injuries all the time. I couldn't get out of bed normally.
Yeah.
Everything was messed up. Now I'm fitter. I'm stronger. I'm better at literally everything. I wake up feeling great. I don't deal with these injuries anymore because I learned when to push and when to back off.
Yeah, so train smarter,
Mhm.
not harder.
Exactly.
Yeah. So knowing your purpose and why you're doing what you're doing, I think, is another key thing that people kind of need to think about when they do, whether it be CrossFit or running, competing in triathlons or whatever they're doing. Know your why and know your purpose of your training as to why you're doing it.
Because then that's the only way you can make things functional.
Correct.
Because going to a gym that says they're doing functional movement, that doesn't mean anything.
Nope.
That's just a buzzword that's getting thrown around out there. What your goals are is the only way you can figure out what's functional.
Yes. Yeah. Agree.
So, I need to get more mobile. I should be taking an hour and a half yoga class every week.
I was like,
That I get a rise out of her on that one.
Not necessarily. So when you only work on that mobility just once a week for the hour and a half, same thing, it doesn't translate into what you're doing the rest of the week. So instead of the one session of the yoga an hour and a half, break that up throughout your week. So it doesn't have to be necessarily every single day, but the days that you are going to be doing some type of workout, incorporate some type of mobility work before and after your workout sessions, maybe first thing in the morning, right before bedtime. Break it up so it's not just all at once.
So I can't go to one yoga class a week and get flexible.
No.
I can't work out one day a week and get fit.
Yeah, no,
You're the
that's
worst.
That's not how that works.
Well, you're the worst.
Like, that's not how that works.
Yeah.
So,
But what we've learned, and it's why we start all of our classes with that weird yoga-ish
Yes.
stuff, is hitting those
Every day,
positions works.
yes.
But it's the law of diminishing returns. We don't need, beyond 5, 10, 15 minutes, you're not getting much extra
Nope.
out of that.
Nope.
So it's much more efficient to do 5 or 10 minutes every single day and put your joints through the end ranges every single day
Yes.
than it is to one day hit it hard.
Yes.
Just like in the gym,
Yeah.
come to the gym consistently. You can't do 1 3-hour workout on one day
Yeah.
and have that be
No.
as beneficial as 3 hours spread out, or even less than that, spread out in the week with intent.
It's like intent and know why you're doing those specific mobility exercises.
Yeah.
So say we're back squatting, right? If you go through the movement, it's like, what do you need to mobilize? Your hip, possibly your knee, ankles. Stabilize the spine, stabilize the shoulder girdle. We don't need to be sitting here and stretching out our shoulder girdles. We're not really using them.
Yeah.
We're actually
So we can
locking
save-
in.
yeah.
You can save time.
So we can hit the end ranges to make sure they're still there,
Yeah, but save
we can
time,
spend
yeah.
our dedicated mobility time
knee,
supporting
ankle.
your workout that day. And now we can be much more efficient and
your
then
intent,
and hit the whole body every week,
yes,
every month, and then we can really push the needle that way.
yes, yeah, and same. It's 5 to 10 minutes maximum.
Yeah.
You don't need to be hanging out in these end ranges. Bump into it, back off. Because when you back squat, you're not hanging at the bottom of your squat for 10, 20, 30 seconds, right?
Yeah. And so
you
the
need
buzz...
that fast twitch muscle fibers to get you out of the hole.
Yeah.
And if you hang out beforehand in those positions for 10, 20, 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, it kind of stretches those tissues out so that you can't use those quick fibers to get back out. So it actually leads to injury if you kind of do these sustained holds prior to workout.
So that's good, because that's super common. And so the term that everyone throws around is dynamic movement, dynamic warm-ups, dynamic yoga, whatever you want to call it. And the mistake a lot of people are making is they're holding these static stretches beforehand, and then they're coming up as like, oh man, my shoulder feels great. Look at this.
Yeah, it's like, no.
Well, there's no stability, and there's none of that stretch reflex we get.
Like the reflex is needed for that.
So should we ever do static stretching?
Depends. So for those who have true muscle shortening, which is very, 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 very rare, I would say like 99% of people do not have true shortening of muscles, meaning that they probably should not be doing static stretching.
So that's interesting. So what would make, so when I bend over and I'm overextended and I bend over, it's like my hamstrings are tight.
Yeah, most of the time it's not your hamstrings.
So I don't need to just stretch my hamstrings over and over again.
Oh, you got to mobilize them.
And
it might not even be muscle tissue. It might be nerve tissue. Just from you kind of being in this overextended position for all day, day in, day out, you're kind of hanging out here. It actually compresses the spine and tensions the nerves.
So position matters.
Position matters.
And it's that core posture.
Core posture is huge.
So the first place we go, we don't just blame hamstrings. We blame the core posture, fix it.
Yeah, fix that.
And then now we get good core posture. Now if I still have an issue, then we can start going into things. But there's no reason to even talk about...
Fix the hyperextension that you're getting into that thoracic spine.
Yeah.
Get into good positions and like, oh yeah, I don't feel that as much in my hamstrings anymore. Perfect.
Yeah,
then
so maybe
this is what you need to work on.
You're not limited in your muscle and joint health. You're limited in how you're bracing and how you're organizing before movement.
Postural strength, and it comes down to your foundations.
Yeah.
Learn how to move better. And learn how to move from that neutral position. Center your center.
Okay, so we've done that. My hip's tight. So what are the types of things people can do on their own? Obviously, they can see a physical therapist.
Correct.
But what are things they can do at home and in the gym
that they can
once they've identified, okay, I know I'm bracing everything right, and I know I'm still struggling with my ankle.
Yes. And so what we're going to do is, or actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to start filming specific mobility exercises to do that you can do at home, you can do at the gym, with equipment, without equipment, make it accessible to everyone. And we'll have these available on a playlist on our YouTube channel, so that way you can click on, if you say that, hey, at the bottom of my squat, I'm noticing my heel kind of lift up. I obviously need to work on some ankle mobility. Here are these 2 things that I can do, and then retest it. So hang out here, do 10 to 15 reps, 10 to 15 reps on the other side, recheck. It's like, oh.
So we'll have exercises to do, tools to use it. So we'll go after the joint capsules with bands. We'll do stuff like that. We'll use foam rollers, lacrosse balls.
Whenever we need it.
We'll throw in some static stretching to make everybody happy.
Yes.
But we'll have all of the normal strategies. And typically, kind of what's the order that we want to start thinking of this stuff in? Do we start spine and posture?
Always. Same thing. You want to start from your center. So center means spine, right? Because that's the center of your body, and then branch out from there.
Yeah.
So
if I'm overextended, look, my shoulders are good, and I'm doing it.
Yeah.
I'm not really doing it unless the whole system's tied together.
Yeah. So it all comes down to core and posture first, and then branch out from there. Because if you're kind of doing this and you're just locking your spine out, you're not really working on shoulder, because you're cheating the movement by extending and kind of doing this versus bracing, getting in position, externally rotating, and then going. So the same thing. There's there's going to be a checklist of things that everyone needs to do first, core-wise, posture-wise, and then branch out from there.
Yeah, and then that's why we get super frustrated.
Yes.
Listening to people come back from their physical therapist or their chiropractor.
They just focus on whatever injury or whatever. Oh, I've got wrist pain, and all they had me do was this stuff with my wrist. I'm like, did they check higher up the chain?
Yeah.
Because it's physics. You're going to move where motion's available. If you sit here all day, of course, like when I go and do stuff with my wrist is moving too much. So why would I want to stretch out my wrist, mobilize my wrist, when in reality, I need to be mobilizing my upper back, getting my core tight, mobilize my upper back, get my shoulder blade to sit back, get the ball into the socket, move the elbow, forearm from there, and then the wrist doesn't have to do as much work.
So it's like a holistic approach. It's the same thing we're seeing in the healthcare industry.
Exactly.
Is you've got 10 different doctors for 10 different things, and they don't talk to each other.
They don't talk to each other.
And so you have...
It's so frustrating.
Yeah, you're having an issue over here, and they're not looking for the root cause.
No.
So...
Find the cause. They're treating symptoms and not causes.
Yeah.
And so I would suggest people, if they go and see kind of these specialists, and they're like, okay, well, yeah, you got wrist pain. Here's a PT script for wrist pain.
Mm-hmm.
And if your PT, just all they're doing is assessing your wrist, I would suggest going and seeing somebody else.
Yeah, I guess that's a great thing is what should you be asking your coach, your personal trainer, your Orange Theory instructor, should you be asking your chiropractor, your physical therapist?
Like,
and if they don't tell you what getting tight means...
Or why you have breakdown at said joint.
Because there might be a scenario where wrist pain, you're going to work on my wrist.
Yes.
But it'll be after the context of getting everything else aligned, because
of course
this doesn't
your wrist
matter.
Is moving, and we see that all the time with front rack positions. People hang out here and they're like, my wrist hurts. And I'm like, well, yeah, because that's the only thing available to move.
That's a great one.
Versus shoulder up and back, your wrist doesn't have to bend like this.
And then tying that back in, it's posture.
It's all
what does a push-up look like? Shoulder back, create the rotation.
Yeah.
Here's your front rack position.
Exactly.
We're twisting into that bar, but now we have the framework where we can get in the right position in everything we do, but it's the same motor pattern. So we're already good at this because I've done 100,000 push-ups, and I've done 100,000 more burpees, and strict press and pull-up, all in the same position. So when I'm tired, I'm not thinking about it, boom, you go right there because we're just using the same motor patterns over and over again.
Yes, but it comes down to the basics of
exactly.
How do I do a proper push-up?
Because if the push-up is here, the front rack is going to be here, and wrists are destroyed.
Wrists are just going to get wrecked.
And same with overhead squats. If we have an issue with the squat, overhead squat, people are like, oh, it's my shoulder. It's like, is it your shoulder or is it your ankle and your hip?
It's like, it's your squat.
And is it your position?
Yeah.
That was another thing I saw. I've been watching a lot of videos, just because we're doing this, I've been watching a lot of videos. And 3 ways to prep for overhead squat. The guy's got his shoulder rotated the wrong way. On every rep he comes up, I think the table's in the way so you can't see, but he dumps and then overextends, goes down, butt winks.
So it's
but he gave you the 3 cool exercises to prep your overhead squat.
Of course.
So they're missing the whole point. The whole point is if you can't do an air squat, then why are we
loading? And
why are we learning from someone who can't air squat properly?
Like you see it all the time. You go on to any YouTube video,
and there's some good ones out there,
are some
but
good
there's
ones,
a lot of bad ones.
You see some, and you're just like, that doesn't look right.
Yeah.
Or they're like, oh yeah, butt wink is normal. Butt wink is not normal.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of those.
Yes.
A lot of those.
Huge.
Explaining why butt wink is natural and normal, and it's
no,
like,
it's not.
no, we get rid of butt wink all the time through
that is not natural.
Core bracing and proper squat, push-up, jump.
Yeah, proper movement.
When we do that right, it's like it goes away.
Yeah.
You got to train it the right way.
You have to train it the right way. And a lot of these people, I think, when they post these videos, it's very specific to, say, powerlifting, low bar versus high bar, whatever it is. And it might be okay to them.
Yeah.
But coming from a mechanical standpoint and from a physical therapy standpoint and a joint integrity, muscle efficiency movement, that is incorrect.
Yeah,
way.
It's not something that's, it's naturally there.
No.
It's like, it's naturally there when we overextend.
Correct.
And then our hip reverses at the bottom. It's naturally there. It doesn't have to be there. We can brace neutral.
Exactly.
And we can hold that position.
It doesn't have to
You just have to,
there.
you got to train it.
You have to work on it, and you
it.
have to train it, and you have to reverse those movements.
Yeah.
And especially under, like, it bothers me because it's like, oh, I can squat 600 pounds when I do this. I'm like, that's not cool.
Yeah. Well, and
Congrats.
what we know, too, is your brain shuts your muscles down as soon as there's a spinal fault. So these people that are back squatting 600 pounds, and this is the mistake a lot of people make, is we're learning from these people who are elite, and they have these problems, and so we think these problems are fine, but the reality is they're elite in spite of the problems. They could be more elite if they fix these issues.
Exactly.
And so you watch someone, it's like, oh, well, they back squat 1,200 pounds and they butt wink. And it's like, he should be back squatting 1,300 pounds if he fixes this, but he can do it anyway. And who knows how many times he's broken his back in his career. A lot of those powerlifters have some massive stories there. But you can be at an elite level, but that doesn't mean you can't be better. Runners, we see, runners all the time. You can't convince a runner who's pretty good at running that they need to fix their running technique because they're pretty good at running. But what they don't understand is how much better they could be, but how much better, I'll just keep jumping around. Our drop-ins we get from out of town. We get these ripped CrossFitter drop-ins from out of town all the time. Their movement is so bad. And what I can guarantee is that they've been at the same level for the last 4 years, and they've hit a plateau, and they can't get past it because they don't have the foundation to actually put some real... So it's like you can impress the beginners, but you're not going to get into the levels that these people so desperately want to get to. But they won't take the time to clean up the foundation because their intensity is too high for their technique, and they need to flip the script and technique and then build the intensity with that. And if they would just take a step back for 6 months, oh my God, they would skyrocket. They would skyrocket.
There's another thing is, like, just because somebody is super ripped doesn't mean they're actually that strong.
Yeah, what does that mean? It means their nutrition is on point.
It's nutrition.
And they're sleeping.
Yes.
And it means that they're probably pretty active throughout the day.
They might not be the strongest or best athlete out there because they look like they are.
And especially a lot of these gyms, we're in our own little bubbles. And so a lot of the members in these little bubbles see these top tier in the bubble athletes, and they confuse them with actual top tier, which is a completely different different game. So when you see someone moving like crap and they're ripped, it makes your members start thinking that it's okay to move like crap because that's what I'm shooting for. And it's like, no,
you want to go above
this person is struggling, and they've been here for 3 years, and every night they wake up just trying to figure out how to get up here. And we have the answer. It's so freaking simple.
So simple.
It's so simple.
Fix your foundation.
Fix your foundation.
Foundations. Basics. Core.
Yeah.
That has to be spot on.
So what was your back squat 3 years ago?
Ooh, like 180.
180,
maybe. Yeah.
What'd you say it was? It's 285.
Oh, somewhere like 275, 280.
275. Oh yeah, 275. But we're on a cycle now, and
it'll get to 285.
2 months we get to test it again.
It'll probably be 285.
It'll be 285. So you've made, and you were elite already coming in, hadn't had a lot of weight training, but that focus on technique. We've been able to you haven't been weight training very long.
No.
You've been around gymnastics and you've been an athlete for a long time.
But like specific weight training wise, not too long. I would probably say a year and a half.
But the reason we can't break you as much as we try is because you have, and you've developed, and you continue to develop along the way, the foundation over and over and over again.
Yeah, you have to work on the basics. And I remember when I first started Olympic lifting, I spent a solid 2 months with just a PVC pipe and maybe the 15-pound bar. And
you still trained your other stuff.
Yes.
Just your skill work.
Skill was just the basics. And I myself personally, and also my coaches, told me, they're like, hey, unless these skills, like with the PVC pipe or with the 15-pound bar, do not look perfect, you should not be loading that bar.
Yeah. And then now you're incredible. So think of it as like a karate studio. Somebody walks in and they want to beat someone up, and they want to do it with an awesome roundhouse kick. It's like they don't teach you roundhouse kick day one.
No.
You grab a broom and you sweep the floor, and
sweep.
in it you learn what positions we need to be in, and then emotion. You paint the fence.
Yes.
You wax on, you wax off. You do all of these things because there's deeper lessons that you need to understand before we get to do all the flashy pizzazz.
Yeah, and I think that's what a lot of, especially CrossFit gyms, they miss the point.
Yeah.
And they just
want the point's not to go RX.
No. No, not at all. Because it's like, that's super flashy, right? And everyone wants to do it. More weight, more weight, more weight, more reps. But how are you getting there?
Yeah, exactly. So the way to get there is not to just go heavier and try harder.
No.
The way to get there is to stay within yourself.
Stay within
do
your
the
limits.
prescribed intensities and volume that your coach is laying out, because hopefully your coach has a good understanding of what the human body can handle and recover from.
Yeah.
And we're going to get you there as fast as possible. And going heavier than that just so you can go closer to RX doesn't get you there. It gets you there slower.
It does, and way slower, especially if you injure yourself.
Yeah.
Which majority of the time actually happens.
Injure yourself, or now you're going too heavy and you can't develop the technique you actually need to be elite.
You've trained your body to move in those poor movement patterns.
Yeah.
And that's what your brain knows.
And so now you've been training for 2 years, you hit your plateau.
You have to revert back.
Yeah, and that's what sucks.
That's so much longer.
That's what sucks. Now the answer is you got to eat it.
Yeah.
You messed it up for 2 years, that's fine.
Yeah.
We can come back from this.
Yeah.
But you're going to have to take a step back. It's like you're going to have to go a little slower. You're going to have to go a little lighter. You're going to have to prioritize your technique. We're still going to be able to do 4 out of 5 workouts technique, and we're still going to have those testing days. But testing and competing every single day got these people into the joint pain, bad technique, plateaus in the first place.
Yes.
And it's like we got to be able to, and I promise we bust past that all the time. But it's hard because it's hard to accept in the beginning that if you go slower, and it's not like slow like being a weenie. It's still really hard. It's just with the focus on perfect position. And we're not going to do any reps outside of trying to be perfect.
Yeah.
It feels a little like taking a step back, but once you start seeing the progress you make when you do that, it's so much easier to accept it.
You're on
but
the up and up.
If you're a bang your head into the wall CrossFitter, it's so hard to take the leap of faith and take that step back.
Yes.
But that step back is going to open up so many
opportunities.
So many.
But the hard part is swallowing that pill.
Yeah.
And I always tell people, I'm like, hey, when you walk into a gym, it could be a CrossFit gym or any gym, you got to check your ego at the door.
Yeah.
Like, and you can't compare yourself to other people because they might not be dealing with what you're dealing.
Yeah, different backgrounds, different bodies, different lifestyles, different jobs, different nutrition.
There's so many variables there. But think about yourself and what you need to do to get yourself better and moving better. And I hate when, and I get this actually from our members, is they come in and they ask me, you train twice a day? How do you do this? And blah, 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 blah. Like, I want to do that. I want to be at your level. I don't think they realize that I've been working out twice a day since the age of 6.
Yeah, so we call it training age.
It is.
It's not about how long you've been doing CrossFit.
So I've been doing CrossFit 4.5 years.
So that's everyone's favorite question. They're like, how long have you been doing CrossFit? Geez, like, look at you.
I was like,
how long have you been doing? It's like 4.5 years. And then they're like, God, I've been doing it for 4 years. How come I'm not at this?
I'm like,
but when did you start gymnastics?
Like 6.
So since And how old are you now?
33.
More questions that
Yes,
typically you don't ask.
33.
6 to 33. Quick math here.
27
There we go.
years,
27 years of training.
Yep.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
So I think that's the point people mix. And especially
miss it.
we know that as you develop at certain ages, at 6, at 8, at 12, if you are training and doing it with weights and doing them
Yes.
if we're doing different things, physiologically you are different than somebody who did not train through those years.
Yep.
And there are benefits that you have from that time that no matter what, you cannot have if you miss that.
Nope.
So that's why it's so important for these elite athletes, they've all done something when they're
They all have
kids.
sports backgrounds.
Yeah.
of
So it
some
doesn't mean
sort.
you can't be an amazing athlete if you start at the age of 25, 30, 35, but there are just realities that you have the benefits from all of that training that they
Leading
don't
up to
have.
that point.
And it's not just the actual training you've
No,
done that has
it's time.
accumulated
It's
to
like,
this.
Yeah.
It's how your body develops.
Yep.
Yeah.
And these motor patterns that you do develop at a very young age. So 6 to 8 is some formative years of how you move. And so if you've been training, from that age all the way to now, you've kind of built a solid foundation.
Especially in a sport like gymnastics,
Yeah, like
which
you-
is
body
completely
awareness.
body
It's
awareness.
all body awareness and
Because
and
I
body
played
weight.
Little League everything.
Yeah.
It had none of the movement in
Yes.
it. It was you might have your partner might have held your arms
Yes.
up like this
It's like,
before you went and pitched 6
cool.
innings.
Okay, let's
And
go.
then afterwards you iced.
Yes.
Just because I remember every single game I was like, my elbow hurts. Can I come out? And they're like, just one more inning.
You're like,
One
okay.
more inning. And it was like, okay. But it's
Okay.
like, yeah, so I'm still dealing with issues from that.
Yep.
Where if you had that movement practice all along, it's just,
It's easier.
there's a
like,
lot
it's
of
just
advantages that come with that.
of doing that. And that's another thing we see in the clinic is like baseball. It's very one-sided.
Oh, yeah.
Like all you're doing is like externally rotating that shoulder over and over and over again. Even if you're not a pitcher, just throwing,
Yeah.
but also swinging. Like
So
that.
this is good too because there's probably a ton of people who played baseball
Yeah.
in the development phase,
Yes.
baseball, softball,
And they've-
throwing a football, throwing things.
golf, anything.
And we see
throwing
these people
volleyball.
come in here
Yeah.
all the time and they have the same issues.
Muscle
Super
imbalances.
external rotation. No internal
So,
rotation.
Trying to pick up for a snatch or do anything overhead, it's going to be very, very challenging
Exactly.
to do. You're going to try to muscle it, but you got to work on those foundations. And at that point, it's not glamorous. It's like, okay, you want me to do what for how long? You're like,
Yeah.
to work on those mechanics, work on the strengthening, getting these positions, and then it's safer for your joints. It's safer for just everything to move correctly.
Yeah.
And especially with CrossFit, since we do a lot of barbell movements, both right and left sides have to move equally. Because if not, you'll see that like rotation happen.
Yeah.
And then that's
The bar's moving in the air.
moving in the air. And so what I like about CrossFit is it kind of exposes some of those muscle imbalances, some of those weaknesses that we tend to see on a regular basis.
And that could be a big reason why a lot of people who either do CrossFit at a gym that's not coached very well, or people that don't do CrossFit and they're just looking in,
Yeah.
or a physical therapist who doesn't know what CrossFit is,
Yes.
and they just see these CrossFitters with all these
Yes,
problems.
and you're just like, this is so bad.
Yeah.
Like, why are so many people getting injured? And it's
Because
not.
it exposes the
It
problem,
Does. It exposes the problem.
but you have to do something about the problem. You
fix it.
can't have the problem exposed
No.
and then just be like,
You gotta fix
my
it.
shoulders are tight. They're always tight, and wear it like a
Yeah.
badge of honor.
Yeah,
it
and
doesn't
that's
work
where
like that.
It doesn't work like that, and I know CrossFit gets such a bad, especially in the physical therapy world, it gets such a bad reputation. But it's not the movements, and it's not the programming.
It's the
the
mindset.
mindset
Yeah.
of go, and more weight, and I'm like, no, you got to flip that mindset of like
Technique
yeah, technique over
Every now and then
anything.
we go.
Yes.
Once a
But-
week we go.
Yeah, but technique has to be there.
Yeah.
You can't out-muscle that. You can't out-strength
Yeah.
the technique. And if you try to, that's where the injury occurs, and that's where the breakdown occurs, and that's when you see people get rhabdo or all these random injuries. Well, I've always had shoulder pain. I just
Yeah.
keep doing it.
Oh yeah,
Fix it.
bad knees runs in my family.
Yes. Well, everyone in my family has back pain.
Yeah.
So I just accepted the fact that I have back pain.
It's probably because we learn how to move from our parents
Yes.
and from everyone we're around. It's very visual.
Yes.
So
it's super visual.
if our parents walk around overextended, it might
Yeah.
seem like a small thing, but you're going to walk around overextended.
Yep.
You're going to have the same problems.
Exactly.
It's not a genetic thing in your back or in your knees.
No.
It's how you move, and you all move the same.
Yeah.
And that's why everyone in your family has the same issues.
And everyone, this is probably like mind-blowing news to everyone, but anyone over the age of 20 is going to have something show up on images, whether it be X-ray or MRI.
This is great, yeah. Because a lot of chiropractors, a lot of physical therapists, a lot of people use this as a sales tactic.
They do.
It's if you go in, something hurts, X-ray, MRI.
Oh, it's because you've got your disc space is a little bit less there. Everyone's is. Why are you breaking down specifically there faster than anyone else your age?
Yeah.
It's how you're moving. It's not like, you know, like, okay, well, I have knee pain on one side. It's not like you walk more on one knee.
Yeah.
It's like, why is that side breaking down? And then say the next person over there, look at their images. Their images probably look worse than yours. Why are you having those pain symptoms? And it might not even be the knee. It might be somewhere else. So I would encourage people who do get these images, take it with a grain of salt. Consult with someone who...
Or go get it. I don't even know if you can do this, but get images when you're not hurt.
Yes.
Compare them to images when you're hurt. And if they look the exact same...
Then you know it's not your structure.
Yeah.
It's how you're moving.
And shoulder tears.
Oh, okay. So I went to a workshop about a year ago, and this is a super shocking fact, especially to me, that 90% of asymptomatic people, meaning people who don't even have shoulder pain, have some type of tear.
Yeah.
Whether it be rotator cuff, labrum, biceps tendon.
So 90% of people. So
have
then
dysfunction.
you
Yes,
go
they might
in
not
with
have
shoulder pain.
Yes. You're going to have something show up.
You're going to have a tear.
You're going to have a tear.
90% of the time.
90% of the time. Of asymptomatic people. So people who don't even have pain have something show up on their images regarding shoulder.
But Elaine, if it's torn enough, I get to have surgery and they fix me.
No. And a lot of the research has actually shown with rotator cuff, and you know, there's always exceptions there, but with actual rotator cuff tears and biceps tendon tears and labral tears, your long-term effects, if you have the surgery versus when you don't have the surgery, you do conservative care, you actually work on your movement, it's the exact same. So why go through the surgical process anyways? Because you're going to have to do the non-conservative.
Yeah,
like
you got to do that. So it's either have surgery and learn how to be a better person,
or don't have the surgery and relearn how to do it.
And if those are identical, and what does everyone do? They have the surgery,
exactly,
and they're like, I fixed my shoulder,
and then they go back to this,
and then now we're doing these. Now we're doing our thrusters here.
I tore it again.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder why. You never fixed the issue in the first place.
And they're here, and we had surgery here. It's like, weird, my left shoulder now, and then my right shoulder's my bad one.
Yeah.
And it's like
it's the same.
It's the same problem. You never fixed the problem.
You never fixed the cause, the root cause of
exactly.
why.
So pills and surgery. So here's my favorite thing too, and this has to be super frustrating for you, is everyone comes to you and they expect you to fix them.
Yes.
And you're basically a physical therapist. I guess therapist is a great word.
Yes.
I was going to call you a coach, but therapist is a great word.
Oh, yeah.
You're not going to fix them.
Nope. I'm guiding them.
Yeah, you're going to poke around and you're going to do all you can, but you only get limited hours with them. It's like you're going to show them how to fix themselves.
Yes.
And how many people do you think actually do the exercises you give them?
Maybe 35%.
So 35% are actually doing the exercises. Yes. We'll assume most of them don't understand why, even though you're trying to hammer it home and they're just here doing this.
Why. Yeah.
And so it really is. It's like you have to change everything. How you move in the gym, how you move in real life. It's posture, squat, push up, jump.
Yes.
And you got to learn. And working with someone like you is the most amazing experience ever. You learn so much, but you have to go in with the mindset of, I'm not going in to get fixed. I'm going in because they're going to identify the root of my problem.
That's exactly what
and they're going to teach me how I'm going to fix it. And I'm going to go home and I'm going to bust every day,
Yes.
and I'm going to fix this myself.
Yes. And that's another thing is if you go to, let's say, a chiro, a Rosti, even a PT, and they tell you it's a quick fix, that is a damn lie. Because it is not a quick fix.
Yeah.
It took years to develop these weird movement patterns, right? It's going to...
It's a quick fix to hold your shoulders back for 3 seconds, but that fix anything?
It doesn't fix the actual underlying... It fixes the symptom.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, my shoulder hurts when I do this. Okay, we'll stop doing that.
Yeah.
Do it from here. But you've got to maintain that. And so I see these people go and get, like, massages, and they're like, oh, it felt great. But then, like, they come back the next day, and they're here, and like, oh, it hurts again.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's a temporary fix, because you're not fixing the root cause of why you're here all the time.
Yeah. And the root cause isn't always there. The root cause...
Everything from here on out. Yeah. And I would encourage you guys to, like, go and seek and ask these questions to these healthcare professionals. Like, why?
Go into it with why.
Go into it with why am I having these symptoms? And if they can't quite explain to you why you have your pain or where your actual pain is coming from, go see somebody else.
It's like expecting to come in the gym, take one of my classes, and I'm gonna sit here and move the weight for you. It's like that's not gonna happen.
It's not gonna
I'm
happen.
gonna teach you how to do the weight, and you're gonna do it.
Exactly.
It's like you got to do it.
Exactly. And me being the healthcare professional, I'm here to guide you and educate you as to why you're feeling these symptoms. Find the root cause. Hopefully there's the buy-in. I pull out the anatomy book. I pull out the little models. Like, this is what's going on. And if you have more questions regarding that, feel free to ask.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to ask. Feel free to ask, but ask why.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are afraid to ask why. And being a healthcare professional, these patients, these clients, they trust you. So as a healthcare professional, I need to do my due diligence of kind of laying it out and telling them the truth of this is a process. It's going to take time, but you yourself have to take ownership and do these suggestions that I'm telling you and do these self-corrective things, or else your issues are going to keep going on and on and on and on.
To keep doing bad analogies here, it's like seeing a nutritionist and having the nutritionist feed you a meal, healthy, tell you how to eat healthy, and then you go eat fast food, and you're like, I'm not getting any better, my nutritionist stinks.
Yeah, it's like it's not technically the nutritionist.
Yeah, how much can they do in the hour but teach you how to do it? They can feed you a good meal, but like that's 1 hour of the rest of your life.
Everything else.
So what we try and get people to think of too is just the context of the rest of their life.
Yes.
If you're 20, 30, 40, 50, if you're 60, it doesn't matter. You have so much time.
So much time.
So what we're talking about is if you take a month to work on something and then you get to be fixed for the rest of your life, do it. What I hate is people show up and they're like, oh, it's finally gotten bad enough. My shoulder hurts. I need a sub for thrusters. And it's like, oh, well, how long has it been hurting? Because this is the first time you're telling me about it. 6 months. It's like,
fantastic.
Your shoulder's been hurting for 6 months. And you're just now telling me. And then the next question is, what have you done for it? And they're like, I tried to rest it.
I rested it.
Then the other thing is, same stuff. Is someone tells us it hurts, we give them the solution. You talk with them, we talk with them, we give them the tools, we tell them everything to do. 2 weeks later, they're like, oh,
it hurts again.
My shoulder hurts again. And the first question is, well, what did you do today for your shoulder? And they're like, oh, well, I haven't really done anything today. It's like cool, well, have you actually done anything? So what I would challenge everybody, and I have to do this to myself, just last week, I was like, my ankles need to move better. They move okay, they're adequate, but it's like and they need to move better. And every single morning for the last 2 weeks, I've been doing ankle mobility. So now it's like, if I complain to you about my ankles not moving, then we can rule out.
It's not
these exercises. I've done these. There's something else going on.
Something else going
exactly.
on.
And guess what? Last 2 weeks, I've seen drastic improvement.
Exactly.
So actually dedicated day in, day out, going back to the yoga, we don't do it.
No.
We don't do long static stretching 1 day a week. Is what we do every single day.
Daily.
And if you have a problem, attack
Attack
it.
it.
Attack it for a month.
Yes.
And create habits and routines around it. Attack it for a month, because the rest of your life, now you just have to maintain it, and it's so easy to maintain.
Oh, easy.
Getting the range of motion's tough. It just takes you got to hammer it. You got to hammer it.
And it maybe 4 to 8 weeks total to ingrain those movement patterns in. But you got to do it.
And rarely is it you need to strengthen your glutes. You need to. It's like we need to position you in a way where you're using your glutes.
Yes.
So when you work out, your glutes get strengthened.
Yes, it's efficiency. So if you're standing here with your hips here, your glutes are already shut off. Yeah. Getting them to turn on just to get neutral is already 100% of firing. Trying to get them to go back is another 100%. It's just not going to happen.
And if I get these glutes nice and fired up, and then I go to squat here, it's like I'm not using them anyway. So having stronger glutes does nothing to me if I don't connect. You can't
isolate, if
I don't connect
the mind-body connection.
Yeah.
And so same thing. I have patients lie on my table all the time. We test each individual muscle, nice and strong, but can you coordinate when you need those muscles to fire? And
so this is why we don't do a ton of bodybuilding. Nope. We don't do bicep curls.
No, it's compound movements.
Yeah, because it's not individual muscles, it's the whole system.
It's how
and when we're rehabbing a shoulder, we're not only focusing on the shoulder.
It's
coordinating the whole thing.
Everything has to be coordinated and make it fun, but also make it functional.
Yeah.
So
if you do CrossFit the right way, it's actually rehabilitative.
It is rehabilitative.
If you do it the wrong way, it will destroy you.
It'll wreck you, and that's why CrossFit just gets such a bad reputation.
Just from a few gyms out there.
Yes.
Or people doing it at home.
Yeah.
Or people have tried it one time, didn't take the foundation course.
And they're like, I injured myself.
Yeah.
Well, well, yeah, you move like poop.
Yeah.
Move better.
Yeah.
And so what we're trying to hone in is foundations, core, basics.
Yeah.
It's not glamorous.
And that's why we're going to be the boring channel.
And we're going to be the boring channel. It's not glamorous. But if those things don't happen, you can't progress, and you're going to peak, and you're going to peak rather quickly, and then you're going to get frustrated, and you're going to be like, well, it's just because, it's just there. It happens. But why?
Yeah.
Why are you just meeting your peak, and why are you still getting injured? Why? Always ask why. And then it always goes back to, well, are you starting in these positions, or where is the
90% of the time it's completely in the setup.
It's the setup.
Or the finish position.
Either
so it's like
starting and ending.
Can we stand here with a barbell in our back the right way?
Yeah.
And at the bottom of the squat, are we in the right position?
If not, we got to work on it.
Exactly. We're not going to set up perfectly and do all this weird stuff and then be perfect at the bottom.
No.
If we're perfect at the top and bottom, we're probably going to be perfect the whole way through.
Exactly. And that's where the efficiency of those muscles kick in, efficiency of the joints, protection of the joints, and you're not going to see the butt wink, and you're not going to see all these kind of weird shifts go on those squats. But can you even just air squat?
Yeah, so let's make this actionable. How do we develop it? We do a lot of, in warm-ups, we do a lot of pauses. So we're very dynamic in warm-ups, hitting in ranges. So pauses, not like static stretching pauses. Like we're going to prep for what we're doing that day. If we're squatting, we're going to get in our squat stance. We're going to brace. We're going to squat 2 inches, and we're going to go through our checklist. Are you doing everything? We're going to continue to squat. We're going to pause, and we're going to pause, and we're going to test these things. And if we're out of position, then we just need to hammer these over and over and over again.
Yeah. And sometimes that it takes time. Sometimes in just a class setting, the first 5-10 minutes probably might not be enough at the beginning, which is okay. You take that immediately before, and or after class, work on those things that you felt the breakdown was happening.
Yeah. And if you can't do the move in slow motion,
you're not going to be able to do it.
You can't do the move with weight, with the music on, with
there's
cool
no
guy
way.
Next to you.
There's no way.
Not going to happen.
It's not going to happen, and that's okay.
And I think that's a big distinction too, is the gyms that are doing it right have dedicated practice time built in, where you might go to something like rhymes with Bloor's theory, and every second you're moving, because we got to get to the heart rate zone. We got to get to that heart rate zone. every second's moving. We're doing this. Hey, now we're doing this.
Switch.
And now we're doing this. And there's
get your points.
Exactly, and it's all heart rate. And it's like heart rate is the easiest part. It's like, oh man, okay, we won't go off on these tangents, but getting out of breath is the easiest part.
So easy.
Trying hard is the easiest part.
Yes.
Developing positions that can make you elite and keep you safe.
That's what training actually is.
That's what training is. And that's why 80% of your workouts are training. 20% are testing. Where we use what we know and push it hard.
Yeah, the training needs to happen
in
order for that testing to be like at its level. If that doesn't happen, the testing's not going to happen.
Yeah, so if you're working out with a personal trainer, by yourself, in a CrossFit, it doesn't matter. Yep. To make it a movement practice, to make it something that actually means something and can do all the things that we're saying, what we should be striving for, you have to have that built-in time to work on gaining range of motion, to develop technique, and to train and cool down and all these things. But we don't have to be inefficient with it. We don't need 2-hour workouts. No. We've got open gym here, so we've got some open gym people that show up. They warm up for 45 minutes,
why are you still here?
And they're doing all of these bells and whistle things, and none of it is with intent or with purpose, and it's a waste of time.
They're just going through movements. But I'm like, why are you doing this?
But if we organize it in a real smart way and then do everything with intent, we can get all of this in
efficiently
in a normal class in an hour long. You don't need hour and a half. You don't need to do stuff before and after. It's like you can get it in at home, wherever, in an hour easily. Getting full warm up, enough time to practice and develop your body to get really good at this stuff and to stay injury free. And work out hard, lift heavy, do everything you like to do, and do mobility and cool down.
Yes.
We fit it in all the time. We do long workouts. We do strength and WODs. We do it all, and we fit it in all the time, and it's not that hard. No. Not that hard. You just have to organize it and plan it out.
Yes, that takes a little bit of time to organize and plan out. That's actually the hard part.
That's a skill in its own.
That's a skill in itself. But knowing why you're doing what you're doing and having a purpose for everything that you're doing is key as well.
And so that's something we do. We work hard to do, and it's something if you're working out on your own, you can do it too. And we come up with something to practice that day. If it's going to be drawing in, if it's going to be balance on the feet, if it's going to be a shoulder position, if it's going to be a technique thing, and then from minute 1 during the dynamic warm up, during the workout prep, during the workout, during the cool. Now we have an hour where we can put our focus on getting better at one thing.
Yeah.
And when we do that every single day, it is crazy.
Yes. The progress that you're going to see, the quick progress.
And if you're on your own, it's super easy. All you have to do is do a slow motion something and be like, what's the hard part? Am I getting here and working around? Then we're just going to put the focus on staying nice and solid through the press. But it's easy to come up with what we should work on. Because either you just feel what's going on, video yourself, see what's going on. Or as a coach, we just look out and it's just like, what's frustrating me? What frustrated me today or last week? Or last time we did push-ups? What made me want to quit and never come back? And there was an overextended push-up. And it's like, so here's what we're going to teach today. We're going to practice and practice and practice. Because you can't just tell someone to get better. No. You got to practice.
And you have to have intent with it.
With intent,
intent. Practice with intent.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think that's hard. It's a hard pill to swallow for some people. Because they're just like, well, I'm just really bad at that movement. Well, get better at it.
Yeah. How long? You get to say that. You get to say that for a couple months, and then you better be really good at the movement because you know what your weakness is.
You absolutely know exactly what your weakness is, yet you haven't done anything to correct it.
Yeah. And then we play around also with changing how you squat.
Yes.
To target quads or to target glutes and hamstrings. Changing your deadlift setup.
So same thing, training versus testing.
Training in a way that's functional for what you need.
Yes.
And even though generally we're going to set up in a general way for one thing, we're going to tweak how we do it possibly depending on what you
want. Yeah.
And the key is you can't read that in an article.
No.
If you have bullet points on what to do in a deadlift, that's not going to give you the answer.
No.
You need the framework of
why.
bracing, squat, push-up,
yes.
jump,
Yeah.
and the context of why we're doing
Yeah.
this stuff. And then you can make those little tweaks very easily
Yes.
on your own
Yes.
once you have the picture of the frame.
Yeah. And that's what makes our job a little bit harder, is because people are reading these articles and it's
Yeah.
like, these bullet points, this is what you're looking for, and it's like, but what's the intent of that?
Yeah.
Like, we see that all the time, just even on like these big giant companies, and they're known for like, oh yeah, this is the newest greatest thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, here's 3 bullet points, and I'm like, this is a movement that literally takes probably 20 separate steps,
Yeah.
and you give 3 bullet points.
And then the person
No.
in the picture
Is
is
doing
overextended,
awful things,
missing
You're like,
day
you
day
missed the
one
point.
stuff, but they had all the bells and whistles listed,
Yeah.
and then they're missing the point.
You're missing the point.
Yeah.
And so it's not glamorous. Like, it's not. It's hard work, but if you do it and you focus on fixing the core issues of like where the breakdown is happening, you're going to see the progress. You're going to see it rather quickly, and I'm hoping that keeps you guys motivated to keep working towards that.
It's something, it's hard, and this has been our experience, it's hard to convince someone,
Yes.
especially a CrossFitter who's been
Yes.
we take a
For
new
time,
person,
yeah.
who's never done CrossFit,
Oh.
they buy in day one,
Day one.
and these
Day
people
one.
get it's so amazing to
looks
see
cool.
one of
Yeah,
our
it
members at
looks so good.
6 months move better than our drop-ins from out of town that come in.
Been moving
Oh my
this,
God,
like,
who have been doing
poorly
CrossFit for
like
5 years.
5-6 years, and they
But
look
yeah,
awful.
it's breaking that 2-year to
Yeah.
5-year CrossFitter
Yes.
who's plateaued. It's breaking them of their ways
Yeah,
because it's different
it is.
than what they've
It's
done.
frustrating.
And
It's
but
different.
but they should know deep down that their progress is stalled.
Yes.
They know deep down
Like, why?
that
Yeah.
they're not lifting the weights
Yeah.
that the smaller people are
Yes.
lifting,
They're
and
like,
they know
why?
deep down that it's like there's something missing,
Yes,
and they're just trying to work harder.
Yeah.
And
that's
you
not.
no, you
no.
gotta take a step back, work smarter, and
like,
then
work smarter,
and
not
then
harder.
they skyrocket.
Yeah, it's like, train smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
And I think that's a hard thing for, like you said, those people who are so ingrained in their training regimen, and they're like, well, that's just how I move.
Yeah.
Like, breaking those people, that's where it's super hard. But the cool thing is, when you do get the buy-in, you do start seeing this, and I've seen this a lot with our own members with the way that we're doing our programming now, is you're seeing these people who have stalled for 3, 4, 5 years hitting PRs within 4 to 6 months of just kind of reworking their movement patterns, and then they're like, that was easy.
Because they hit the previous numbers, knees
Like,
were in, back
really-
was rounded, and then
Yeah.
boom, I got it. There's my number. There's my back
There's
squat
my
number.
PR. There's like,
So, and I'm glad you brought that up because I had forgotten about it. But we don't call that a back squat.
Nope.
If you deadlift and on the way your
hitch.
back goes,
Yep, nope,
that's not a deadlift.
Nope.
So you don't count those. So
Nope.
you're the numbers you get to count are the highest you can do
for that capacity.
almost
that day,
perfectly.
yeah.
We realize that at the margins there we're gonna break down.
Yes.
And then that we're gonna learn from where we break down because we know what we need to work on.
Correct.
But if we write down our nasty deadlift PR, then we got to get nasty to PR.
Yeah.
But if we write down our perfect lift deadlift
solid.
and then know, things broke down once I added 20 pounds,
Back off.
now we know most of the system can lift more, but I got to fix the
Fix
weakest
the-
part. So if you have a race car and you have one crappy part in there,
Mm-hmm.
and that one crappy part breaks, the whole car is useless.
Useless,
The
yep.
car has a lot of potential.
Yeah.
And that potential didn't go away. Fix the one part, and oh my gosh, you're going to skyrocket.
Yeah.
But if you just keep allowing yourself to chase PRs that are nasty,
Yeah, that's
you're never going to develop the technique
nope.
to go 100 pounds over your PR. You'll beat it by 2 pounds and 5 pounds, and that'll happen for 5 years, and you're going to get frustrated. You might already be frustrated with that same thing.
Yeah.
And it's the technique. Then we're talking 100, 200 pound difference. It's like,
For
it's
technique
crazy.
wise, yeah. And so hone in on that technique, and then you'll see the differences later.
And we're starting to see it at the CrossFit Games. So
Yes,
we're not
we
a very
are, yeah.
competitive gym here. But what's been amazing, and you can go back and watch the beginning of the CrossFit Games, and it was just a joke how everybody moved. And then people get better and better. And then 3 years ago, there were a few people that were moving really, really well. And now there's it's the anomaly is the few people that move not well that are still up there.
Yeah.
But in general,
they're moving better.
Their movement is getting way better. And it's just because CrossFit's newish.
Yeah.
But watch Olympic weightlifters and watch power, they move really well at the elite levels. And what we're seeing is that same thing happen.
Yeah, we're seeing that trend.
Because the only way to get to that level,
you have to hone in on the technique.
You got to hone in on the technique.
And like you see them too, these higher level athletes, they're actually hiring Olympic weightlifting coaches.
Yeah.
Because they're like, hey, I'm really strong, but I'm awful at snatching or jerking or cleaning.
Yeah.
So let's clean it up. Let's kind of break it down as to like why I'm really bad at these and why do I keep getting injured? Why does my shoulder always hurt when I do this? And that's so smart.
And then you watch the people that are consistently at the top.
Yes.
Froning, Frazier. Yes. Their body positions are perfect.
They move perfectly.
Yes. They move with intent on reps.
Efficiently.
And you see, we won't call any names out, but you see the hyperextended people. You see the grunt grinders.
Yeah. And
they're dealing with they're not able to produce the same amount of force and efficiency that the others are, but also they're dealing with injuries all the time. So how much training can you get in if every year you're taking a month off because of injury?
Because of injury, yeah. So and that's why you'll see Froning always at the top because he trains he trains a lot.
Trains well.
But he trains well.
Yeah.
And his body proportions and everything is with intent. He does it perfectly. Same thing with Matt Frazier. He has an Olympic lifting background, but everything he does, whether it be running, even his gymnastic skills, everything is honing in on staying tight, moving efficiently. He might not move the fastest, but he, at the end of everything, he does actually move the fastest because he's moving efficiently.
Yeah.
Some people go out the gate and they're moving terribly and they're just going really quickly.
Yeah.
He's slow and steady and maintaining his rep 1 versus rep 30 look the exact same.
So, 7 years ago, everyone would have laughed us out of the park with technique in CrossFit because CrossFit was just underground. You just threw stuff around and we're crazy. But now it's getting proven over and over and over again. And I promise you, it's just even this year at the games. I promise you, technique's going to be even better.
Yeah.
We're probably 10 years away from 95% of the people at the games moving really, really well. But you just go back. You can watch it. You don't have to know a lot about... you don't have to, but you can just see it. Just in the last 5 years, if you look at what people look like when they do the movements, they're getting better and better and better. And that's the only reason those weights are skyrocketing, because you have to have that movement to be able to support those weights.
Exactly. And move smart and move well. Move efficiently, protect your joints.
Yeah.
And that's what they're doing, and they look great.
Yeah. So even though our focus here is mainly real world, it's the same. It's the same conversation.
Thing. It's the exact same conversation. It's just with the intent of this person's competing versus, hey, I just want to be able to bend over and pick up a jug of water without throwing my back out.
Exactly.
Exact same thing.
Yeah.
It's the exact same thing, and it comes down to foundations and technique, and not trying to out muscle the technique, because that's just not safe.
Yeah.
And it's not smart. And that's actually why there's so many industries now that are kind of quick fix places. Yeah.
So I think that's a really good thing to talk about, is that is the problem.
Yes. That's the issue.
It's the industries selling you things, but it's also the people wanting the quick fix. But the problem is, it used to be the person walks in, they want the roundhouse kick.
Yes.
And the master had core values that were like, great, but we're going to sweep the floor. Because we know we need to build these things to get there. But now there's so many masters that it's hard for this person to distinguish between who they're talking to.
Yes.
And so when they see a master be like, yeah, I got you a roundhouse kick. It's cheaper than this guy, and I'll get it to you.
Business.
I'll get it to you day one. It's like, where is the consumer going to go And
it's a quick fix. It's all
exactly.
about the business owner trying to get your money.
Yeah.
They're not looking out for you. They're
Yeah.
not looking out for your
They want money.
They want money.
Yeah.
So if say you go to somewhere, I'm not going to point any names out or any kind of specific professions out, but you walk in, you pay them $25. They do a quick little adjustment. Okay, bye. See you in another 2 days.
I wonder what you're talking about.
I wonder what you're talking about. See you in 2 days.
Yeah.
You got to keep going back every other day or every single week for years.
Yeah.
They're not fixing anything.
So it really comes down to now with the internet and with certifications,
easy certifications.
To be a CrossFit coach, to be a personal trainer, to be any of these, it's like that's easy.
It's
like
so easy to
anyone
do.
can do this. You
It's
don't
so
need
easy
very
to
much.
do. No.
At least the CrossFit certifications have tests and there's physical components,
Yeah.
but it's easy.
It's
easy. So now we have a plethora. If you've seen Three Amigos, that's from Three. Okay. So now we have a plethora of different masters, and the consumer is not doing their job of identifying
who's good and
who's not. If you work at a gym and you're a trainer, you're good. And that's what and then it turns into, do I like this person as a person? We get that all the time.
Yeah.
People come in and they're like, I loved my trainer. And then we slowly learn that the person they had been working with for the last 5 years doesn't have a clue.
No.
And so now it's this really hard thing where this person realizes this person I loved didn't know what they were doing.
Really wasn't that
good.
educated.
So it's up to the consumer where they are. Do your research. Prod, and
ask questions.
Yeah, if they're willing to teach you a roundhouse kick day one,
I wouldn't go there.
Yeah,
I wouldn't go there.
Then they're probably just trying to sell you stuff, and they're going to move you into a class as fast as possible where you can be one of the mix, and they're just going to get you in a membership.
Yeah.
And if they bore you to death with talking about bracing the core and learning the basics, and they have a strategy that works for actually teaching you how to do these things
properly,
it's like now you found somebody that can actually
fix your issue.
And then even if you work with them for a year and you never see them again, you've got this foundation for the rest of your life.
Exactly. And do your research and poke and prod, and as a consumer or even as like an athlete coming into it.
And this is coaches, physical therapists, chiropractors, teachers,
anyone,
Craigslist, tutors,
anybody. Like, you got to ask
doctors,
those questions.
Like medical doctors is
like
what I meant.
Medical doctors, because like they're so busy.
Yeah.
And that the same thing, that industry is just based on productivity. How many people can they see?
Yeah, you got to ask questions.
In and out. But you got to ask questions. Don't just listen to what they say. Yes, listen to what they say, but ask questions. Keep asking why.
Yeah.
Like, why am I taking this medication? Oh, it's because you have high blood pressure. This is what it does. Okay, cool. I got it.
Yeah.
But if they can't explain to you, and I'm going to rant about pain medication.
Yeah.
Why am I taking this pain medication?
Yeah.
Well, it's because such and such is inflamed. Cool. But why? If they can't explain that, I suggest you go see somebody else. Because they're literally just there to push you a drug, because that's the pharmaceutical companies. That's who's running our healthcare industry, by the way. They're just trying to test out these new drugs, and they get paid for it.
Yeah. And then how do the doctors learn about what their continuing education? How do they learn about the drugs? It's through the pharmaceutical companies.
Exactly.
They're coming in and they're like, I've got the drug that does this. These are the symptoms of it. And so, we're running our doctors into the ground with how many patients they have to see and how they deal with insurance.
It's so bad.
Anyway, that's outside of
our scope.
But we could do another one on that.
Yeah, we could do another one
get
on
really
that
into
one.
it.
But it's all about.
But also, and just because someone has their MD doesn't mean that they have the bigger understanding of context, and they're actually giving you. So you got to question everything.
Yes, question it.
Especially you just got to question everything, and then That's all I gotta
And,
say.
and then be able to put it all together.
Yeah.
And then maybe consult with someone who kind of does understand that. You guys can always come to either Kyle or myself if you do have those concerns.
Yeah, don't question us though.
Just kidding. You can question me. I'll take it. But question and just figure out why.
Yeah.
And then have a purpose for everything that you're doing, and just keep asking why. Like, why is my shoulder in pain? Well, it's because I do this, but why am I moving this way? Why?
Because we have answers.
We have answers
for 99% of it, and then every now and then what'll happen is in a class, someone will ask why. I'll give them the answer, and they'll say, "But what about blank?"
And it's like, oh.
And then it's like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, now I'm not gonna sleep tonight because I'm gonna figure this out, and I'm gonna come back to you with a better answer, or I'm gonna come back to you and be like, dude, you were right. Like, I don't know why. What happened? This happened with box jumps with us. Is we had the general standard in CrossFit is to land on the box, stand all the way up, and come back down. And so we had someone jumping on the box, jumping off of the box without standing up.
Yeah.
And so we started talking, and I was like, well, let's jump on the box, stand up before you come back down. We started asking about why, and my answer was because that's the standard in CrossFit competition.
Yes.
And then immediately, as soon as that came out of my mouth, I was just like, we don't do anything because it's a competition standard. How low do we squat? We squat as low as you can perfectly. There is no hip below the knee. No. We're not talking about competition. We squat as low as you can perfectly. Yeah. So immediately, because they asked me why, I heard my own answer, and I was just like, that's the worst answer in the world.
Like, that was not the right answer.
Yeah, and then after the workout, we talked about it, and we actually decided that in some workouts we might do it this way just to control things more. Yeah. But now in some workouts we're letting people jump off of the box because we're going to get more of this fast-paced, and it's going to jack the heart rate up. So, asking why people better have good answers, but you should be working with someone who also is willing to be like, oh man, I was wrong.
Yeah.
Like
willing to admit admit that they don't know.
Yeah. Admit that they don't know and figure out that, like, man, this is embarrassing that I've never thought about this enough to have a good answer for you. And
thank you for bringing it up. Yeah. Yeah. But thinking, and you always want those people who you do go ask these questions for to kind of constantly think about what is the next step, or what could they ask me, like how, and then give them a response. Yeah, you need, if you don't know yourself why you're telling someone to do something, then why are you telling them to do it? You probably shouldn't be telling them.
And what happens in a situation like this is we get in we just get comfortable, and especially as our views change over time, we change how we do things. Yeah. But every now and then something like that gets worked into the mix, and the old reason of we do it because of competition standards. Yeah. And we haven't.
That's the standard. That's the rules.
Yeah, and we haven't changed the thinking and everything. Yeah. It's like, no, we're doing it to get the best stimulus from this workout, functional to your goals.
Your goals.
And that might be stand up on the box. It might be step down from the box. It might be jump down from the box. Who knows? There could be a lot of answers here, but the answer generally should not be because that's standards in a CrossFit competition. Like, no. Because
that means zero.
If someone doesn't have the proper hip and ankle range of motion,
they're not going to be able to do it.
Or the motor pattern to get their hips below their knees, or to get a kettlebell over their head without overextending and bending the arms, then we shouldn't be holding those people to a competition standard.
I agree.
We need them to train the position and over time develop the position into
where they can tolerate.
Where they can do it right.
They can do it perfectly for them.
Yeah.
And that just takes a little bit sometimes of individual one-on-one kind of training, which is great about what we do in our gym, is that our coaches do walk around a lot, and they kind of like viewpoints like, ooh, okay, this person looks like they're struggling. Let's kind of break it down a little bit.
But in the context of that person.
Yeah. It has to be kind of a little bit more individualized to that person.
Because you start generally, posture, squat, push-up, jump. That's where we start generally.
Yes,
but then do we high bar, low bar? Do we go wide? Do we turn our feet out?
And we won't
Are we sitting to a box? Are we doing bands on the thing? Are we putting chains?
We won't know until we kind of break it down a little bit.
And learn the person.
Learn the person a little bit and individualize it. And so that's kind of where the one-on-one training sessions are kind of key, and figuring out, okay, do you have enough internal external rotation to be able to do a high bar or versus a low bar at the hip, kind of break it down there. But everyone needs to have the foundations first, and then start kind of honing in on it, especially if they want to go into like more competitive style training.
And that's the thing, especially if they're going to get more competitive.
Yes, like they need those one-on-ones of like, okay, figuring out what works for you and what your purpose of your training is.
Yeah.
And so that's where the individualized program comes in. And I see so many CrossFitters kind of follow random.
Yeah, let's not name names,
but
a lot of popular
programs ones, because they have games athletes in them. The general public should not be doing that programming. Are you kidding?
And so the one-on-one stuff too. So what we'll see a lot is people are following a program.
Yes.
And it's written for them.
Yes.
It's for competitive athletes.
Not for the general public.
But this person's doing it, and they'll do to a T everything written on it. And their in-person coaches will give them advice on something. They'll do everything on this general program, but they won't do the one thing that the people in their lives that are looking at them know that they need.
Like, and would see the breakdown in their movements. And they're like, well, no, because I'm following this training program.
Yeah, but this says to warm up with a foam roller on the quads and this. And it's like, but your ankles don't move.
Why aren't you mobilizing?
Why aren't you mobilizing your ankles? You should hit this every single day until these suckers move. Who cares about that if your ankles don't move?
Yeah, so I would word of caution to people who do kind of just follow random programming is to kind of sometimes take a step back and be like, okay, is this appropriate for me?
Because the programming for the most part is probably great,
but the warm up and like the cool down
is not specific to them,
to you.
And it can still be fine, but it's like, get a coach, video yourself, be your own coach, do whatever you need to. But as soon as you identify, like, your ankles don't work, so now we've got a squat where we bend over real far because the ankle can't track.
Yeah.
And as soon as we identify that, maybe we remove some of their general warm up that's assuming you move perfectly and do your own specific thing.
Yes.
Let's get the ankles moving, and then once your ankles are moving, let's come back to it.
Go into this, and so that's kind of the only issue that I have with these kind of other programming that's not very specific, and they're just like, oh, we'll get you to the games. I'm like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
It's like, or we're going to prep these for these, sanctioned events. Like, in order for you to do well at these sanctioned events, you got to do this kind of programming, and the general public is not going to be able to follow that programming safely.
And a big part of it, and this is what happens, you get into CrossFit, you start having fun, a year, 2 years in, you're ready to bump it up.
Yeah.
So you bump it up. But what they haven't figured out along the way is how to recover.
Yes.
When you look at the elite athletes, what they do really well and better than everyone else is recover.
They eat and they sleep.
Eat, sleep, they do soft tissue work, they're moving all the time, they do long, slow cardio. Yes. You watch them, they get done with the workout, they're on a rower.
Or on the bike.
And they're not on,
30 minutes.
And they're not on it to work out.
No,
they're on it to recover.
Yeah,
work in.
They're
active recovery.
They're active recovery.
And so the trap, we watch behind the scenes of the CrossFit Games, we get so excited. It's so awesome. And you watch these Road to the Games and you look at the programs and you're like, I'm making the next step. Yes. I'm going. And then they don't make any adjustments to, and it's like you were barely recovering, if you were recovering at all, from what you were doing. And now we've added more. You need to also add in more recovery.
Yes. And you do have to realize that these top athletes too, that's their job.
That's their job.
Is to be an athlete. So they're working out 3 to 4 times a day, doing these pretty intense metcons, but they also have time to actually sit there and recover.
Yeah. Well, and the good ones... The good ones aren't testing, 3 to 4 times a day.
No.
They're training 3 to 4 times a day. That's different than come in, do a WOD, write your score on the board. Yes. Come in, do a WOD, write the score on the board. No. It's training.
Training with intent and purpose.
Exactly.
Yeah. And those people, same thing. Their coaches are doing what they should be doing by telling them, hey, you're going to go hard on this workout, but then the rest of the workouts the rest of the day are just slow and controlled. Work on your technique, work on the movement, just move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't give me your score. It's like, I don't care about your time.
I don't
I want you to do it.
Yes.
Focus on technique.
Yes.
Even if it's a cardio workout. It's
Yes.
like, don't tell me your time.
Who cares?
Because what I do with your programming is we highlight them purple.
Yes.
And it's
this
like,
is the one that
when
you
it's
go
purple,
hard.
give me your
Yeah,
time.
go hard, go all out, but that's maybe
And what,
once,
1 or 2 a week?
At maximum
Yeah.
once or twice a week.
Yeah.
Very, very rarely any more than that. Because you want to train smarter and not harder.
Yeah.
And same thing for the general public. They're probably not working out 6-7 days a week, right? They're probably just doing 2 to 3.
Yeah.
And it might be okay to kind of go that
harder
point
in the 2 or 3.
in those 2 or 3, but you also have to recover.
You got to recover, yeah.
You got to recover. So I think a lot of times people don't talk about the importance of nutrition. How are you feeling yourself to be able to get through these workouts before and after? And
that's what's tough too, because now this is a rabbit hole we won't go down, but we should talk about it at least at a high level.
Yeah.
There's not a one size fits all for nutrition,
No.
and the way you might eat to lose body fat might be very different to build muscle, might be very different than fuel performance.
Correct.
And to be overall healthy.
That's it's a different monster all in itself.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why we are in contact with nutritionists and dietitians, kind of getting their take on what this should happen, because that's their realm, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're like, okay, this is kind of what we
Yeah.
know, but if you really want to hone in on that, that's why we consult these experts at that specifically.
And I just had a food sensitivity test.
Yes.
It actually told me things I already knew, and I'm allergic, or I'm sensitive off the charts to wheat, dairy, and almonds. So paleo, no peanut butter. We got to eat almond butter. We got to do almond milk was crushing me.
Yes.
So what I felt is when I had wheat, my hands swelled up.
Yeah.
So even before the sensitivity test, I knew something with wheat was going on. Dairy messed me up, ways we don't want to talk about. Almonds made me feel like I had anxiety.
Yeah.
I'd be driving to the gym and I'd be like, what is going on? Yeah, my heart's it's like, what is going on? And I finally traced it back to I've been putting almond butter, and it was just like, oh my gosh. And so figuring that out. It's so there's not a one side, because I don't know anyone that would be like almonds are unhealthy.
No. Yeah.
And then
you just don't know.
Yeah, you just don't know.
You have no idea.
And so everyone's just so different. But why we might do something, again, it's in the context of you and what your goals are. Yeah. And there's not like this is the diet.
No.
So that's why
play with
paleo zone. That's why the carnivore diet. There's so many. Keto's the fun one right now.
That's a whole nother beast.
So anyway, there's not one size fits all.
When it comes to anyone's programming.
And the way to eat healthily is a little different than if we're fueling performance.
Completely different.
Yeah, because we're in the game of metabolic conditioning. Yeah. We need carbohydrate.
You need
to burn in high intensity workouts.
You need them.
Fat is fine for long, slow.
Yes.
You need sugar. And you don't have to eat sugar. You can get it from natural sources, but you need sugar to fuel the intensity that we do in here. Yeah. But now if you're trying to lose body fat, so
that's
it's just
different. And same thing, if you guys have any questions regarding that, please feel free to kind of hone in on that and contact us. But it not one person fits in a box.
Yeah.
Right.
For training.
For anything.
And that's the thing. Going back to the competitor programs.
Yeah.
They're great programs.
Yes.
But they're not written for you
specifically.
Yeah. So
might not be appropriate.
So you got to do your job if you're going to follow a So the beauty of you're in a gym with a coach is now I get to change what I wrote on the board generally for you. And it's really easy to do because we're in person.
Yes.
If you're following a generic program without a coach around, you need to learn on your own why rep schemes look a certain way. Why are we doing a high hang, an inch from the floor? And would your time be better spent just going from the high hang and developing a position? Or do we need all the bells and whistles because the most elite who've been lifting? So if you look at it, it's actually really funny is in people's careers, especially in like weightlifting, what they do to get to where they are is
Yeah.
much more broad
Yes,
and
it's
general.
huge,
And then
yeah.
it gets so specific. It's like Iliad. I
yeah,
think
yeah,
that's how you
yeah.
say his name. One of the best, I forget what his
Weightlifters,
weight class
yeah.
is. His training is snatches and clean and jerks and front squats, and he does some toes to bar.
Yes.
That's
Like,
it.
It was like, what?
He didn't do that to get there.
No.
So these
It's very
people that are
specific.
working all these positions, it's like they've earned the right
To be so
to do these
specific.
barbell complexes.
Yes.
It's like if you can't do a snatch from the hip position
Why?
correctly,
Yeah.
then why are we going to add in all the
Bells and whistles.
all the bells and
Like,
whistles?
No. Foundations
Yeah.
is words.
And it would be fine because we might even, when we don't do it just because it's for a general class, but if we were running a super advanced class,
Yes.
we might program in something crazy like that.
Yeah.
And then in person be like, well, for you,
This is what you.
this
need
is
to
what we're
do.
working up to, but
Yeah.
today we're not there. So
Yeah.
for you, this is what we're doing, and then we'll build it over time.
Yeah, and I think that's the issue that we have now with social media is because it is so accessible to everybody.
Yeah.
They just look on YouTube and they're like, snatch.
And they think what the best are doing now is what they should do.
And
You should be
that's
doing what the
not-
best did at your level to get to
To
where
get
they
to
are.
that
And I
point.
promise you it's not what they're doing
No.
right now.
Like all these ridiculous snatch complexes, I'm like, you should not be doing that because
Yeah.
you can't even stand
Yeah,
with proper technique. What
Yeah.
makes you think that you could do that holding 155 pounds?
Exactly.
Like, there's no way.
so instead of doing the crazy snatch complex, we learn how to brace, and then we do regular snatches
Yes.
with pauses to make sure you're in a good
Where are
position.
you?
And
It's-
then when you're hitting that,
then
we
you
start
start
snatching. And then when we're good at that,
Then you
maybe
start
we might
having
throw some more fun stuff
complexes,
at you
yeah,
just to
but-
make training more interesting. But if you can't brace the core, if you
No.
can't get the barbell in the hip and keep it there,
Yeah.
if you can't hit a good overhead squat position, then why are we doing
Why
a
are we doing
4-position
It's
snatch?
like, well, it's pointless.
Yeah.
It's absolutely pointless. And then at that point, your training has no intent or purpose.
Yeah.
You're just moving through movements.
Yeah.
And that's where you peak.
Uh-huh.
And I think that is a very hard pill to swallow for these CrossFitters who have been doing this
You
for
just wanna-
3, 4, 5 years.
And
They
we're the
just wanna
same
lift-
way. We love
Yes.
throwing weight around.
We do. We love it. But
But
sometimes
you got
have
to earn the
it.
right
You gotta
to throw it
earn
around.
And it takes time. And it takes a lot of dedication and hard work to get there. It's not pretty.
Yeah.
It's not glamorous. It's not all the cool bells and whistles. But that hard work will eventually pay off.
Uh-huh.
You can't.
In big
in
ways.
huge ways.
Because then you get to throw more weight around.
Yes.
That's
and
the thing. It's like
It's
just
like, ooh.
delay
that's
that
fun.
gratification for a
Yes.
little bit longer, develop it,
Develop.
and then you get to throw around weight that's going to impress people
Yes.
and not just impress the new people in the
No,
CrossFit
no,
gym.
they're like, ooh, yeah, they're lifting so much weight. You're like, yeah, they're lifting a lot of weight, but with perfect
Yeah.
technique. That is impressive.
And technique that now when we're doing cleans and in our brain, we're tying it to our jumping motor
Jumping.
pattern.
I was like, jumping.
Techniques that actually make you jump higher.
Yes.
Techniques that transfer over into actually playing sports. Playing
yeah.
with your
Not
kids, just running
CrossFit.
around in
Yeah,
the
like,
park.
Not just CrossFit.
Just using our body in the way that it was meant to be used.
Yes. Moving in a way that we were given. We're born with all of this mobility. We just eventually lose it.
Yeah.
So we got to get back to that point. And it is. You can get back to that point. It's not fun.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Uh-huh.
But you got to do it.
So, what do? We move
Yes.
every day.
Every day.
Yoga-ish, weird, dynamic movement every day.
Move. Motion is lotion.
When we find an issue, and your coaches can help you, we'll have a bunch of
We
resources
can
that'll
do
help
that.
you. When you find an issue, hammer that
Hammer it.
sucker.
Hammer it.
Put the issue behind you.
Yes.
And my favorite day in here is when we overhead squat,
Oh my god.
because generally females in here have
Yes.
better mobility than males,
Upper half, yep.
and it is awesome to watch all the females outlift the males.
Yep.
Who the males typically outlift the females, but well, when you got someone like Elaine, that's not true. But just in general, and it's awesome to see that it's the positioning
Yep.
makes all the difference in the world.
Yep.
And the guys can't overhead squat
Nope.
a 45-pound barbell. And
Without
the
their heels
girls
coming up or
are
doing
just,
that.
we're dumping weight on them, and they're just solid.
Solid,
And
yeah.
if Yeah, and it's just position, position, position.
And
So,
strong positions and protective positions. And it's all about mobility and knowing how to get into these positions safely. And it all comes down to your starting positions and then your ending positions.
Yeah.
Where are you in space?
start, end, and we figure out what to do in there.
Yes.
Posture, squat, push-up, jump. And we get really good at learning how to manipulate those into everything we do.
Yes, and translate it into everything, whether it be, getting in and out of your car, on and off the toilet, sitting down for dinner. Like, these are general things. But if you think about all of those movements, it comes down to the squat, push-up, and the jump. All three of those are basic movements that we were given and that we should incorporate into just daily life. Whether it be throwing 185 pounds over your head, going to pick something up, exact same movements.
Yeah.
The foundations are the exact same.
Yeah.
Nothing changes. And if those foundations don't happen, that's where the breakdown happens. And that's where injury happens. And then people get frustrated and they're like, why? And we're telling you, this is why.
Yeah.
It's
no one's going to fix you.
No one's going to fix you.
You have to fix you.
You have to fix yourself. And we're here to guide you. And I know, like, a lot of physical therapists are like, yeah, just let me fix you. And I'm like, I wouldn't necessarily say that. Let me help you fix yourself.
Exactly.
Is usually what I tell patients, because physically I can help manipulate and put things where they need to be, but what it comes down to is, what are you doing outside of the clinic and what are you doing outside of the gym that's helping to maintain these positions? Because if those don't happen, it's just going to fall back into this vicious cycle again. So let us help you, but fix yourself.
Yeah.
Like, we're putting it kind of in your own hands, and we'll have these resources available for you guys to just kind of click on and be like, okay, let's just try this for the next 2 weeks. We're going to hone in on this every day. If you see results, great. If not, go to the next step. Okay, this is what else I'm seeing. Perfect. And then at that point, if it becomes like a super individualized thing, please contact us and let us know. We can go through a movement screen. Contact Kyle, any of the other coaches. They can help break it down for you. But ideally, we want you guys to take ownership and learn to fix yourself. We're here to help guide you.
Yep.
And it's not fun.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not fun. And it's not going to be perfect, but just work at it.
Well, I think it's... Well, in my opinion, it is fun.
It is fun, yeah.
You got to have the right perspective on it. You
Yeah.
don't get the roundhouse kick day one. You earn it.
You have to earn
it's
it.
that much better, but the result is that much better.
Yes, you have to earn it. Yeah.
So I think that's a good place to end.
Yep.
Thanks for doing this.
No problem.
So we'll be putting out more content.
All of the videos.
But this gives a good idea of
what we are.
Why we're doing it.
It's like, and hopefully you guys see our passion for wanting to help people and get people moving better and moving back to where our joints were given this ability to move in these ways, and we need to go back to that. And that's the easiest way to protect ourselves and be able to do these things later in life.
Yeah.
Whether you be 20 years old right now, whether you're 90 something years old right now, just learn to move better.
Yeah. Posture, squat, push-up, jump. We'll teach you how to
things.
Organize that in every way possible. Elaine's going to help you figure out, if you've got tissue and joint restrictions, how to get past those things.
Mm-hmm.
So stay tuned. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Got it.